Oh no.
It's time for the main event. It's the Shoe Shine.
¿Qué onda? What's up, vatos locos? It's your boy Dave from the 408 coming to you all the way from my podcast studio in San Jose, Califas for another edition of the Shoe Shine. We're back on Monday nights, Mr. Philly Irish Drew Evo, all the way from the city of brotherly love, Drew. I'm sorry about the Phillies, man, but hey, epic season. Drew, what's poppin'? What's going on, homie?
Not much, just chilling. A little bit tired. Other than that,
Now I gotta ask you right away, Drew. Do you have Powerball in Pennsylvania?
yes.
All right, did you get yourself a ticket?
No, because I know I'm not winning. So why the fuck would I waste my money on that?
Oh man, I definitely got my ticket, and I can't wait to see if I'm gonna be the next billionaire, Drew, because I want to be a billionaire so freaking bad. Guys, if you guys want to tap in, I see the chat starting to light up, and I appreciate every single one of you. I see Mom Food Planning Things, appreciate you. Ron B, Sin City Syndicate. Oh, yeah, I know you always got the good odds on what's cracking. Chicano Prophet, Roy. Saludos to everybody, and of course, my homeboy Chicano Prophet from the Al Chile crew. Yeah, we're talking about Powerball, Drew. But you know what? Speaking of the Phillies, there was an old man. All right, I don't know if you mean he's not that old, but he goes by the name of Mattress Mac. Did you see this guy, Drew? He won a world record $75 million on the Astros, and he went to Vegas to claim it. This is the biggest sports bet victory from any human being, I believe, in the U.S. Maybe it's not international, but listen, $75 million he took Caesars Entertainment for. Caesars Entertainment said they might actually be in the red, in the negative this quarter over losing $75 million to Mattress Mac. Drew, this guy's already wealthy. He's a furniture store tycoon in Texas, man. But congratulations to him. He didn't need to win the Powerball. He did it all on a sports bet for the Astros. But the Phillies had an incredible season. My 49ers are on a bye week. I don't know what's going on with the Eagles. Give me the report.
8-0.
8-0. Wow, shit. It's time to talk about boxing because I don't have any answer for that. I just want to remind you guys, I do pay for this phone line. And I think it's a great way to interact with the guests. So if you want to tap in at 702-710-3627, we are going to talk about what went down in the sport of boxing this weekend. And Drew, it's the deadliest combat sports, whether it's UFC and boxing. We've seen more deaths in boxing than we have in mixed martial arts. It is a brutal sport. I don't know why I'm so attracted to the violence. But every time somebody gets seriously injured, it's a stain on the sport. And we will be talking about this, man, because this guy, Aidos Yerbesneli from Kazakhstan, who had rightfully deserved an opportunity to fight David Morrel Jr. on Fox Sports PBC or PBC on Showtime this weekend. If you haven't heard, guys, this fighter, it was a really amazing performance by David Morrel Jr. And this undefeated fighter from Kazakhstan deserved to be in there undefeated, earned the WBA opportunity, and he is fighting for his life. We're going to get to that later. He's fighting for his life in a medically induced coma from brain bleeding. And that's what we know right now. And I'm going to ask you guys what can be done in the sport of boxing to make it safer. And if the referee, Tony Weeks, who's well known, one of the most respected referees, did he do his job Saturday night? Don't forget to hit the like and subscribe if you haven't, guys. I would love to hit 500 subscribers by the end of the year. Drew, let's get right into Dimitri Bivol, man, because I was on the roundtable last Thursday with Beeb, D-Style, Calix. It was a star-studded panel, and I vehemently was in support that Zurdo Ramirez was going to destroy Bivol, and if not destroy him, actually come up with the victory in a decision, Drew. I think you also picked him, if I'm correct, right? Beeb picked him, and we got into a heated argument. You guys can go back and check Beeb on Ringside Reporter. Me and Beeb got it completely wrong, and if you voted for Bivol, if you voted for Zurdo, you got it wrong too, Drew. So what happened, man? Tell me, is Dimitri Bivol, the great Mexican slayer in 2022, the face of boxing, couldn't do it, thought he was going to get easy pickings and we move up to 175 and take on Bivol. I think he thought Bivol was the weakest link champion at 175. Shout out to Boxing Vitals for this hilarious. Who is your papi? This guy's dismantled two of the best Mexican fighters in the sport of boxing, both Zurdo and undefeated. And now guys are saying that he should be fighter of the year. Are we going too fast? Are we moving too fast? Fighter of the year? Only fought twice. Yes, he beat two great fighters at the face of boxing. But is two wins in 1 year good enough to be fighter of the year? There's so much to dismantle. Drew, give me your take on what happened this Saturday night.
It was something like, I had a 10-2 for Bivol and everything. Gave Zurdo the second and the third round.
Mm-hmm.
It seemed in those 2 rounds, Zurdo was having a lot of success going to the body, being able to set up the body to go upstairs. And he was very successful at it. He was nailing 3-punch combinations multiple times in both rounds. Then after that, he just went away from it. He just literally went away from that game plan. And I don't know if his coaches are telling him not to stay with it or anything, but a guy that moves around like Bivol, you're hitting him to the body, you're being successful with it, you're actually getting combinations off. Why not continue to do that? You're actually slowing him down in the later rounds by doing that, because if you want to take away a guy's movement, what do? Go to the body. And they stopped doing that. I don't know why he stopped doing that. Like it was really should have been a competitive fight. Mm-hmm, it wound up being one-sided after 3 rounds. And like it just really I'm just asking myself, why the fuck did this dude not pull the trigger on a lot of his punches? And because he damn sure had the power to knock Bivol out.
Well, that's so strange you say that, Drew, because I felt the same, the exact thing you just said right now. While I was watching the fight, I had the same feeling. Why the hell is he not pulling the trigger on his punches? Why is he so tentative? But looking back on the fight afterwards at the CompuBox and all the stats, Drew, this is crazy, but Ramirez averaged 73 punches per round, which was far greater than the amount of punches Bivol was throwing, somewhere around 53%. Overall volume by Bivol, it's not crazy impressive. What's impressive is how many jabs he lands. And I couldn't have said it more better on the roundtable, but look, I said that Zurdo's key to winning this fight was that he had to beat Bivol to the jab, and he could not allow Bivol to set the tempo with that jab, and that's exactly what happened after round 3. It was easy coasting. I did give him rounds 2 and 3, but he just couldn't do anything about that jab. Where Bivol is so special, Drew, now that I really think about it, after watching him beat Canelo Alvarez, after watching him make easy work of Zurdo Ramirez, who had all the physical gifts and attributes and size and height advantage to win this fight, and it felt like an embarrassing performance. Drew, I'm going to have to say, I'm convinced Bivol is the best light heavyweight in the world. He's going to beat Arthur Beterbiev this year, not this year. There's no fight this scheduled. He'll be fighting Anthony Yard, but in 2023, he's most likely going to be undisputed light heavyweight champion of the world. But going back and looking at these CompuBox numbers, Drew, he really only averaged a little bit over 20% of his punches landed. But it was the fact that people can't land on him. So he is a defensive genius a la Shakur Stevenson. He's right in that pocket statistically with Shakur Stevenson. And I saw Shakur Stevenson fight once in Reno, coming up at 126 to win that title. And then I saw him fight against the Mexican fighter in Las Vegas last November, or earlier this year against, why can't I forget the name? The guy who has a damn crocodile for a pet. He's going to be fighting. What's his name? I already forgot his name. Help me out in the chat, guys. He made such easy work of him. I was embarrassed. But my point is, Drew, Dimitri Bivol, even though he's not an offensive output genius, man, defensively, you can't hit the guy. Even Canelo Alvarez found this out. I have to favor him against Better Bev. Let me know in the chat, guys, what you guys think. Little Penny wants to know, did you pick Ramirez to KO Bivol last week? Oh, shit. Did we? Did you? We thought he had the power. He's shown it. But here's another issue, guys, and please let me know. And let me know, Drew, now do you feel that Ramirez's record was greatly padded, like a lot of Mexican fighters before they come to the U.S., that it was heavily padded with soft touches? I know that at Top Rank, I wasn't the greatest fan of Zurdo Ramirez when he fought at Top Rank, because even though he was the champion at 168, I felt like the fights he had at 168 and at Top Rank were kind of fluff. They weren't anything to speak about. His resume is arguably worse than Bivol, with Bivol's less than 20 career fights. We got a caller already. Let's get him on the phone. All right, we're talking Bivol. 503, you are on the Shoe Shine. What's up, Sarah? Shout out to Sarah, Ron B.
What's happening, fellas?
Chicano Prophet, what's cracking, homie? Tell me your thoughts on Bivol's dismantling. If I have it right, if I remember correctly, you were favoring Bivol to win?
Yeah. To me, I thought it was going to be a little. Actually, to be honest with you, Bivol did a better job than I expected. Dave, let me ask you real quick while I have you on the line. Like, I'd love to know, like, did you expect Ramirez to be on the back foot like he was early? Like, I felt like he needed to be front foot dominant too, and I was really surprised. It even seemed like the announcers were a little surprised. It's just. But I also understand that he just couldn't handle Bivol's speed, and his ability to get in and out.
Well, what surprised me, guys, is that finding out that they had extensive sparring together, right? And I would think that Zurdo Ramirez and his team would have already had a preview or even a better game plan. And I was completely shocked. And even my wife was constantly saying, what the fuck is that tall, big guy doing fighting backwards? I was in utter shock that Bivol was controlling either the inside the middle of the ring, or even against the ropes. I mean, he was controlling everything. He was controlling the distance. Yeah, I was surprised, man. Bivol did a lot better than I expected. I expected the fight to be competitive, like Drew just said. I didn't expect Ramirez to come up with the knockout. I know that Dimitri Bivol's got a good chin. He took Joe Smith Jr.'s best shots and stood up to them. But yes, I will admit, man, Bivol exceeded my expectations. And now I'm on board with Calix Boxing, who had to remind us about his statistics, man. This guy is incredible. So now I got to ask you, Chicano, do you put him on your pound for pound list now?
Yes, I do. I have always given Bivol his respect. You can't find anything to the contrary. I've always said he's very good. I was more worried about the fight versus Canelo. Like, I didn't bet any money on that one. I was not surprised. I said he had the best shot to beat Canelo. But you know what? I think he's even better than we thought. Like, I think he's just a very, very skilled fighter. He does everything very well. And Better Bev is getting older. Like, I don't see anybody around him who could possibly take him other than Canelo. But, then again, it's like, well, Canelo was still a number one pound for pound fighter when they fought, right? He still was. So it's like, if that guy decides to fight Bivol again, I mean, it would make sense. Who else around him could beat him? Maybe Better Bev. But I think Bivol is the best at 175. No doubt about it.
Yeah, it's incredible. Now, also, I want to ask both, I don't know if, Drew, you got a chance to, but listen, there's a lot of murmur going around the internet that we should pronounce him now the front leader to be fighter of the year. But, I mean, I'm kind of shocked at that, because now we're lowering our expectations to watching a guy fight twice per year, or, even though he is a champion, that's good enough to be fighter of the year twice per year?
Well, tell you the truth, mostly all these guys fight once a year nowadays. So
Exactly. And there's nobody that had a better legacy win than Dimitri Bivol when he beat Canelo.
You think that was good enough to put him over the edge, and then the dismantling of a top contender in Zurdo Ramirez, a former 168-pound champ, and also Canelo Alvarez, the undisputed super middleweight champ. There goes Drew. I think you were joking last week how many times will Drew step away. I hope I didn't lose him now. But listen, I gotta ask this because I put this in the thumbnail, Chicano. Is David Benevidez, who's now still fighting at 168 pounds, who's busting out of his seams, man, is he pretty much the only Mexican or Mexican-American fighter that I can look forward to possibly having a chance to beat Bivols someday? If not next year in 2023, maybe early 2024?
Yeah, I think you're right. But then again, dude, I think Bivol beats everybody. You know, I mean, Bivol's, he's the man. There's no doubt about it.
He beats everybody, including a David Benevidez moving up to 175. You think he'll just beat him too? That means essentially, once he gets past Beterbiev, you think he'll be sitting on top of this division for a very long time? Because I don't see Bivol's build growing into a cruiserweight. I just don't. I mean, we've seen people like Roy Jones do it, and other great fighters move up to weight classes above their natural frame. But I don't see the guy doing it. I don't know. Maybe it's just me. Drew, do you see Dimitri Bivol staying at 175 for his entirety of his career, much like Golovkin?
No, I really think, he can rotate. I think he's going to rotate between 175, maybe 168. If there's bigger fights from at 160, if there's big fights from at 168.
Really?
Yeah, I can see him making 168.
But he already brought up arguably the face of boxing and dragged him up to 175. He got the face of boxing, and Canelo's been vehement that he wants to avenge his loss, man. It's on his mind all the time. Bivol's already made a statement saying, I'm not too worried about fighting Canelo again. It's just not on my mind. I want legacy. I want to go for undisputed.
Well, here's the problem. That fight's not getting made. I'm telling you that right now. I'm going to tell you this right now. Dimitri Bivol versus Arthur Beterbiev will not happen.
Wow.
And I'm going to tell you why. Because Bob Arum does not want to make him go to the zone, and Eddie will not let Dimitri Bivol go to ESPN, and they will not do a joint pay-per-view. The networks are going to prevent this undisputed fight from happening, and by the time they'll probably agree to it, Arthur Beterbiev will probably be 40 years old, or probably don't even have the belts anymore. Somebody will probably step up and beat him unexpectedly.
Chicano, do you also agree with that?
Damn.
That this fight's going to be just as difficult to make as this Errol Spence, Terrence Bud Crawford situation? You think it's going to be one of these fights that's impossible to make?
Well, I mean, that's a good question. Eddie Hearn and Tom Brake, they know how to do business together. So my assumption would be that for some reason this fight did get stalled. It probably should have happened already. It's funny. Everybody was talking about undisputed this, undisputed that. But then when we could have got those two together, everybody was totally okay with them taking different opponents on. So they should clash. Are they aging out? Is the Bivol team aging out better, Beav? I don't know about that one in particular, but I don't think that will be an issue based on the styles probably for the next maybe year. But you know what? As we've learned, dude, age always matters in the sport.
It does. Yeah, I have to agree with you there.
Here's the problem. If you're going to, the more the blame's going to be for Bob Arum. Beterbiev wants to fight. Beterbiev doesn't care where he fights at. It's going to be Bob preventing this fight from happening, really. Especially since his comments about the zone, calling it the dead zone and everything. Like, I understand the app's not that popular. It's, and like, people can say it's popular, but it's not popular. Because really, nobody, like, really buys the app that much. Really. Not a lot of people do.
Mm-hmm.
And, like...
So, Drew, you think Bob Arum would prevent this fight?
I think he will. I think Bob Arum's going to be the one that prevents this fight from happening. And if you look at it like this, they want it the pay-per-view, most likely, and DAZN and Top Rank are not going to try to do. Top Rank does not want to share pay-per-view rights with DAZN because DAZN is actually up and coming on the pay-per-view market, and all you're doing is giving them more business in future pay-per-view revenue. And why do that to your competitor in the sense of competition? But at the end of the day, you're also damaging the sport, and you're actually making less money trying to do this yourself by not having a joint pay-per-view and having possibly the biggest fight in light heavyweight boxing history, undisputed. And this fight, if it's promoted right, if you have the right undercard with it, could possibly do like 400,000 in pay-per-view buys.
Well, what about, okay, Nando Lamas brings up a great point. Neither guy sells much tickets in the U.S., unlike Gennady Golovkin, who became a American sensation and worked hard at it with HBO. But he says better be if Bivol makes great business sense in Saudi Arabia. Drew, we've seen in the past when Teofimo Lopez was mandated to fight the Australian Kambosos that Top Rank simply said, fine, I won't be the highest bidder. Fuck that. If it's being ordered by the sanctioning bodies, I'll just sit back and let whatever fool wants to pay for it take the highest bid. And it ended up being a company that I don't even know if Trill is still in existence right now. You know, they're barely hanging on by a thread. But there could be the possibility, right, Chicano, of some like major international investment company that says, I'm willing to spend $50 million to put this show on in Saudi Arabia. Is that a possibility, Chicano? Did I lose Chicano? I lost Chicano. Hey, make sure you guys listen to Al Chile, my homeboy Al Chile. And salutes to everybody coming into the room right now.
Well, here's the thing, Dave.
Sure.
The only way I think this fight will happen if Bivol becomes a mandatory for one of Petrovia's belts.
He's gonna be. It's only a matter of time. It's gonna happen.
And you know, this fight goes to post bid. And like Bob, like they're gonna have to negotiate. He's gonna have to negotiate with Eddie Hearn because that's his promoter. And if they can't come up with a deal and everything, they're gonna have to go to post bid, and somebody's gonna risk losing this fight, and they might both lose this fight if the wrong promoter gets their hands on it, because you can get Oscar to put $25 million down on it if he chooses to have it in Saudi Arabia, or Dubai and everything. You can have the PBC, which I doubt they'll put any investment in this fight, but it will be a big blow if they would be able to land this fight from Top Rank and DAZN. So I don't see the fight happening. The only way I see it happening is Bivol comes a mandatory to Petrov, and that's it. But like what I wanted to bring up too was Bivol's movement, the way he, like, you know, all these guys, all these Eastern Europe, mostly a lot of these Eastern European guys, when they fight and when they're boxing and everything, they constantly move and punch with angles, and it makes them really hard to hit. But they land while they're at it. They're throwing punches, and it's in a favorable position because they'll likely go to get the point for that. Like Usyk does the same thing. Lomachenko does the same thing. I wouldn't say Kovalev does it. Kovalev is more like a guy that's going to sit down on his punches and be flat-footed. Petrov kind of does it a little bit, but Petrov puts his foot down on punches too and everything. But like these Eastern European guys have a style that does not let them get hit often.
Right.
And if you're able to hit them, then you're doing something right and everything. But these guys are really hard to beat. And especially these Eastern Europeans with the style that they constantly move around, giving you angles. And that's what I think was the main issue for Zurdo, that Bivol kept on moving, side to side, punching while he was doing it. And when he saw an opening with that punch, used like a jab, was a setup punch, he was able to get a combination in. And that's what really open up the fight for Bivol and everything.
You know, we got a comment here from 92, Aku Caballero. Thank you for joining us. Long time I haven't seen you in here, homeboy. He says, who did it better, Canelo or Zurdo? And I have to say, Canelo Alvarez did better because even, you know what? Canelo, to me, he tried in almost every round. He tried to bang up Bivol to the body. And most of those punches landed on Bivol's tight guard. And they didn't do the damage that I think Canelo was expecting. But I give credit to Canelo because I think, from my recollection, he easily won more rounds than Zurdo Ramirez. Ramirez didn't have any plan B whatsoever. Drew's a couple of things on my mind before we move on, man. One is that what does Oscar De La Hoya do with Zurdo Ramirez, who obviously is not going to come close to winning a title at light heavyweight so long as these two Russian great boxers are on top of the division and eventually maybe will be unified? Do you have Ramirez move up to cruiserweight? Because here's the deal with that guy, Jake Paul. Guys, whether we like it or not, he's obviously going to fight one of the Diaz brothers, Nick Diaz most likely, in his very next fight, another MMA fighter. And then after that, the pressure is going to be so big that he needs to fight a real boxer that he's going to drag Fat Chavez Jr. out of boxing retirement and probably beat Chavez Jr. in his first win against a professional boxer. And then, Drew, there's actual pro boxers like David Benevidez who showed up in Arizona a couple weeks ago and said, yo, what about me? I'll fight you. You know, there's actually guys that are interested in fighting him. Even the former cruiserweight champion wanted to fight him and got no response. But what about a guy like Ramirez calling out Jake Paul? What's Oscar De La Hoya going to do with somebody like Ramirez, who's obviously not going to win the light heavyweight champion, man? Does he move up to heavyweight and contend there?
You mean cruiserweight?
I'm sorry, to cruiserweight. Does he move up to cruiserweight? Because obviously he's got the height and the frame.
Yeah, but the problem is, I think, in my mind, I think he needs to change trainers. If he's plans on going up to cruiserweight, I think he needs to change trainers to make him be able to put his foot down on punches and everything.
Well, I agree with you. There was a ton of people on my Twitter timeline arguing the same thing. By the way, guys, if you don't follow me on Twitter or Instagram, make sure that's my Instagram handle. And now, Drew, you know we all have YouTube handles now. They're the same, so I believe that's the same one. But Nando Lama says, trying to outbox Bivol from the get was a bad game plan, and I just didn't hear anything getting through from his corner into Ramirez's head. And I think that Ramirez should, I know he works out and owns his own gym in LA, but I think he needs to take serious consideration to changing his training team. I agree with you right there too. Thanks everybody for chatting. Drew, there's another thing while I'm on my mind of Oscar De La Hoya, who was ringside with his fiance or girlfriend or whatever. Everybody loves to make fun of those two. But Drew, Jaime Munguia is coming up, and the issue of fighters like Jaime Munguia and
Dave,
Ramirez.
I gotta stop you before you mention his name, man.
Who?
Fuck Jaime Munguia.
Well, I'm bringing it up because, listen, he's going to be fighting in just a couple of weeks against a relatively unknown fighter again, Drew. And there's a lot of people. There's a lot of people who are saying that now that Zurdo's been exposed, because a lot of these great Mexican fighters that we think are great actually have really padded records, man. So I'm going to ask you, man, was Ramirez's record of 44-0 padded?
You know, he did a fight out old offer Abraham. Jesse Hart was a quality opponent that he beat.
Where's
twice.
Jesse Hart now? Where's Jesse Hart now?
I don't know where the fuck Jesse Hart is. Tell you the truth, like I don't know. Like I asked my boy where he's at because my boy was in his camp. But like I look at it like this. I like Jaime Munguia, man. He's continuing to fight nobodies and everything. He's fighting with a guy that has a record of 21-5. That is not probably. Is he even ranked in the top 15 of any sanctioning body?
No, and you know what? This Saturday, we'll talk about the upcoming schedule, but Saturday we have a new world champion, relatively new world champion at middleweight. Janibek will be fighting in Las Vegas at the Palms, and I'm excited about that because the Palms hasn't staged a fight in years. It just recently reopened. Top Rank is kind of experimenting, looking with new venues in Las Vegas. Janibek, this is a fight that Jaime Munguia should have been in, right? He should have been contending for the middleweight title. The middleweight division is a joke. All right, we got our boy on from the 510. Hold that thought real quick. I think this is our boy Nando. Nando, ¿qué pasa?
What's up, homies? How you guys doing? What's up, Dave? What's up, Drew? How you guys doing?
We're doing good, man. So we're talking about the Bivol fight. We're about to move into the David Morrel Jr. at 168 fight. But, man, tell me your thoughts, man. What are your thoughts on this weekend?
Well, I called in to defend Munguia a little bit. Should I say that for next week, maybe? And
no, I don't care. No, I mean, it's coming up in just a couple weeks in November, man. And my thoughts are on those two fighters because, you know, after Canelo walked from Oscar De La Hoya, Oscar was like hell-bent on saying, well, I still have a ton of great Mexican and Mexican-American talent. And he's kind of cashing in on, you know, having Ramirez at light heavyweight and Munguia at 160. But to me, they've been fighting just trash opponents, man, and it hasn't helped their careers, and it's probably at some point going to hinder their career when they actually have to fight top opposition. But what are your thoughts on it?
Well, like, I'm not going to defend Munguia's opponents, right? Like, other than to say, you know, I think it was necessary to do a little bit of a rejiggering of his career, of his technique with Morales, give him time to, you know, adopt a new style. But what a lot of people forget, dude, that this year, right, it wasn't two big fights that got squashed by PBC, Steven Espinoza. It was three. Because we were supposed to get Munguia versus Charlo in June until they pulled out we're not doing any partnership with the zone card. That was in July, you know, or June or July. So, like, I think Munguia does want to fight somebody, but, you know, for whatever reason, people feel sorry for Bud. People, you know, like, hey, Bud, you know, like, he got screwed over by the PBC. Well, I think Munguia got screwed over by the PBC too. You know, and instead of making that Munguia Charlo fight, we got no Charlo fight this year. You know, maybe Munguia should not be acting like that guy either, or he would save himself the criticism if he only fought once a year. You know, hide in the shadows like the rest of these guys. But instead, Golden Boy's keeping him busy. And you know what? I'm looking forward to that card, man. There wasn't going to be any boxing next weekend unless it wasn't for the Munguia card. You know,
It's not this Saturday, is it?
It's next Saturday.
Next Saturday. Not this Saturday, but the Saturday after.
19.
Yeah. Okay, well, you're right, man. November's kind of been a thin month, but we do have some boxing. Chicano Prophet says, at least Munguia is willing to go Mexican style, unlike Ramirez, and that's a big freaking complaint that a lot of people have, even in my household and my immediate family, man. They were dearly disappointed by Ramirez's performance because it just seems like Mexican style just doesn't faze Dimitri Bivol one bit at all, man. So, Drew, any more final thoughts on that? I'd love to have you, Nando, hang on for this David Morrel fight. You want to talk on that subject a little bit?
Oh, man. I'm sorry, but I'm going to go ham on this subject right now. Jaime Mejia is
do it, Drew. Do it. Let's do this.
Jaime Mejia is 40-0 and is already been a world fucking champion. A legitimate world fucking champion. And this dude is still fighting fucking taxi drivers. This dude is still fighting motherfuckers that are outside the top 15. And then, like, all right, Gabe Rosado. How many losses does this motherfucker have? Like fucking 15 losses and everything.
But he was coming off a great knockout victory of that Beck the Bully.
A prospect, a fucking prospect. And then another thing, he got robbed against fucking Daniel Jacobs. Yeah, here's the thing. Why couldn't you name fucking Mejia fight Daniel Jacobs? And that's the other thing. They're on the zone. A lot of these fighters are on the zone. You couldn't get a fight with Daniel Jacobs. You couldn't. You really couldn't get the Golovkin fight. You couldn't get like at least a better fucking. At least a guy that's ranked in the top 15. Like, seriously, a guy that has 21 wins, 5 losses. Nobody fucking knows shit about him. He's not even ranked in the top 15 in any section and body and everything. And then people want to defend this dude. Seriously, no. We cannot defend him. He ducked Demetrius Andre. He ducked Janibek. That's it. I don't want to hear nothing else about this dude. I don't want to hear, oh, he's getting better and everything. He's 40-0. 40-0.
Did he dug Charlo? Or did he dug Charlo?
No, actually,
Netflix,
there's evidence that Steven Espinosa and
Netflix didn't let that happen, man.
yeah, they didn't want that fight to happen on one network.
That would have been a great fight, Drew. You gotta admit
Oh,
that.
it'd been a great fight, and they should
that would have been a
still
great fight, Drew.
They should still fight because we saw
Yeah.
we saw that Mexican
But
fighter
I'll tell you
give
this-
Charlo so much problem. I'm sorry, guys.
But I will tell you this right now. I think a 40-year-old Triple G will spank Jaime Mejia still.
Well, that's a fight that should possibly be made. What is DAZN waiting for? What is Eddie Hearn waiting for? What is Oscar De La Hoya waiting for? That's a very formidable fight for Gennady Golovkin, who still holds multiple belts in the middleweight division, and he's not officially retired. But listen, at Sonteo Media, I want to address this issue. I have heard that Zanfer is his manager, Zanfer Promotions, that it's not entirely Golden Boy's fault for the level of opposition. And that's what makes boxing so complicated and so difficult for the average sports fan to follow, is that every fighter has got an advisor. Every fighter has got a manager that's taking a cut. And then every fighter has to be on a promotional thing. So Oscar De La Hoya acts as his promoter. And sometimes these things all prohibit fights, great fights being made. Shout out to Joe Lopez, 40 ounce. I ain't seen you in a minute. He says, who is the Andrade fan? Yeah, we just kind of spun off into the Jaime Mejia talk because he will be fighting. It's one of Oscar's other fighters. And I brought up the point, man, was Ramirez's record heavily padded? It appears so. And I cannot discount how much amateur boxing experience plays into it, because Bivol, whether we like it or not, fighters like Bivol or Lomachenko or other fighters who have heavy experience and have gone up to the level of the Olympics, they've seen every top international competitor. And somebody like Ramirez, who maybe did not compete in the Olympics.
I think.
Go ahead, Nando.
I think Bivol and Beterbiev are like. I think Bivol and Beterbiev are an obvious notch above Zurdo Ramirez, right? That doesn't mean he can't have some fun fights, you know, like in between next year or whatever. Like, for instance, I'd like to see him fight Callum Smith.
That'd be a great
fun
fight
for Zurdo Ramirez, you know.
Be a great fight.
Yeah, you know, you can do stuff like that with Zurdo. You can do stuff like that with Zurdo. Not every fight has to be a championship fight. Obviously, Zurdo is a big notch below both Bivol and Beterbiev, but you can still have fun fights with them. And that's what I would like to see Golden Boy do with Munguia also, right? I would love to see him fight Janabek. I would like to see him fight Charlo, or I'd like to see him fight Triple G. And it's hard when these guys are with other promoters or don't really want to fight them. You know, like, I think it's a two-way street, because I don't really think Munguia himself is afraid of anybody. This guy signed up to fight Triple G when he was still a prospect, you know? So I don't think he's afraid of anybody. I think it's his management maybe holding him back a little bit, trying to get a little more money out of him. But I'm looking forward to a big fight for him next year. Then if he don't have a big fight within the next few months, I will be completely on Drew's side, man. Like, I'll be done with the bullshit, you know. But for right now, we have to be a little bit patient, man.
But you want to know what the issue is? I don't think his team has faith for him to win a big fight.
You don't think Eric Morales, the great Eric Morales, has faith?
I don't think.
You don't think that Charlo fight's a 50-50 fight? Hey, Drew, you don't think that Charlo fight's a 50-50 fight?
Yeah, that's a 45. That's a fucking
pretty close.
55-45 like Charlo.
That's pretty close, man. Montiel almost had Charlo, man, and I can imagine the volume.
I thought Mejia lost to Dennis Hogan. I thought Dennis Hogan beat Mejia.
Yeah, that's right. That's true. A lot of people didn't. Will agree on that too.
Look at it like this. To your point about Callum Smith versus Ramirez, you'll see Callum Smith versus Bivol before you see Callum Smith versus Ramirez. You might see that.
That's a shame, man.
You might see that next year.
We may. All right, one last thing.
These broadcasters, man.
Oh,
go ahead. Sorry.
Oh, no. Well, go ahead, man. You're my guest here, so go ahead.
I apologize, dude. I hate to hijack the show. One last thing, man. These broadcasters, if they're going to stand in the way of their guys fighting on other doing co-promotions or whatever with other broadcasters, they should at least force the promoters they do have under contract to make these fights, man. The zone should say, hey, we want to see Callum Smith versus Zurdo next. Callum Smith is not fighting anybody. You got Bivol, hopefully fighting Beterbiev. Let's do this. You know, like they had to back Eddie into having this fight in the first place with Bivol. You know, Eddie did not want to have Bivol fight Ramirez in the first place. Why? You know, I don't think it's Golden Boy, man. I really don't think it's Golden Boy. I don't think it's Oscar's mentality not to challenge his guys. He throws in his prospect in over the head sometimes. I don't think it's a Golden Boy issue, man. But thank you.
Hey, man, I appreciate you for calling the show, man. Always a great call. The great Nando from the Five and Dime, man. Appreciate you calling, man. Take care, Nando. Drew, one last thing, man, about the light heavyweight division, man. I had to give this a lot of thought today, man, but because of Canelo's performance against Bivol and how poorly Ramirez did this weekend, I'm wondering, okay, we saw him knock out Kovalev years back, the champion at 175, and he took that title. And he arguably won maybe 4 rounds against Bivol and did much better than Ramirez. Is Canelo Alvarez a top 10 light heavyweight, even though he's not going to campaign there? Is he good enough to beat other light heavyweights like Joe Smith Jr., who had a title recently, or maybe even beat Arthur Beterbiev? I mean,
no,
he's not a top. He's not a top 10 light heavyweight.
He doesn't beat Joe Smith. He doesn't beat Arthur Beterbiev. Excuse me. He doesn't beat those guys. Those guys are too big for him. And let's put it out there right now.
But what about Callum Smith? He just brought up Callum Smith. I would have never thought that Canelo Alvarez could deal with the size of someone like Callum Smith at 168. Now campaigning as a light heavyweight.
I think the weight's going to be a difference this time. Because look, I'm going to tell you this right now. He beat Sergey Kovalev because Kovalev was barely not even 2 months off of the Anthony Yard fight. He was almost stopped. He's 37, 38 years old when he fought Canelo Alvarez. He went right into the Yard camp, into a camp for Canelo. That's why that was a way, to tell you the truth, that you're not going to win many fights like that at that age, going into a different camp right after the other right away. Barely not even 2 months of a layoff to prepare for possibly the number 1 pound for pound fighter that is like, at that time, 10 years younger than you. You're not. He beat a guy that was the weakest champion of that division at the time. And everyone also said he was the best. No, he wasn't. But you got Paterno, that was the best. You got Grosstick, that was better than Kovalev. You got Bivol, that was better than Kovalev. Like, I just don't see why people are still bringing up that win. That he'll still be competitive against these light heavyweights.
You know what's crazy? Right out, if you just listen to the names you chattered off, man, the Eastern European fighters, specifically Russia or Ukraine, Eastern European fighters have been dominating the light heavyweight division for years. That's crazy, man. But let's segue out. I hear a lot of chatter about Canelo in the chat. I hear a lot of chatter about Floyd Mayweather, who will be fighting this weekend, guys. Yes, Floyd Mayweather is fighting this weekend. Chicano Prophet says Canelo should stay away from 175. But Drew, he says he beats Joe Smith easy. So with that in mind, the WBA, like all these other sanctioning bodies, has more than one freaking champion. And this weekend, PBC was displaying this great Cuban fighter, David Morrel Jr., who, shout out to him, appeared one time on our friend Raw Boxing's show, and I got to ask him a couple questions, man. And I still remember how gracious David Morrel Jr. was in taking my questions on Raw Boxing. That was over a year ago, man. He's only got 8 professional fights, Drew, and already holds a secondary title in the WBA division. PBC, in my opinion, has the best super middleweights aside from Canelo Alvarez, which is why when we saw Caleb Plant fight him, Canelo, I was hoping that Canelo would sign at least a 3-fight deal with Al Haymon and PBC, because arguably there are the best fighters in the 168 division aside from Canelo happen to be at PBC. I'm talking about David Benevidez, who's going to be fighting Caleb Plant. We have other fighters like David Morrel Jr., who is an outstanding, I don't even know what to say. How do you call the guy a prospect when he's got the WBA secondary title? And Ronnie Shields is saying he needs to fight Canelo. Wait, this fight needs to be ordered. He's only got 8 pro fights, Drew. But something horrible happened this week. You know, while watching this mind-blowing performance by David Morrel Jr. against the Kazakh fighter Aidos Yerbosnelli, all right, who came in undefeated and earned this WBA shot to fight him. Undefeated fighter, gets his nose broken. Drew, I've been watching David Morrel Jr. This guy is no bum. And he straight up broke the guy's face, like just was busting up his face all night long. And yet, Aidos Verbasnelli never stopped trying. Unlike the performance we saw in Ramirez, I don't think that Verbasnelli ever stopped trying. And it breaks my heart to hear on Monday morning that he's in a medically induced coma to try to reduce the brain swelling as a result of brain bleeding. He's fighting for his life. Chicano Prophet says Morrel is very impressive. What type of threat does he... And you know what? I'm going to put his picture back up because unfortunately, guys, after 2 weeks of COVID, I am going to cough right now. Go ahead, Drew. Take the mic.
I think Morrel is a huge threat to Canelo. I think he beats Benevidez easily. Like, I don't know what I'm sorry, but I just don't think Benevidez is, like, when he goes and fights a big name, I think it's going to end up the same as Zurdo Ramirez. I think, I'm telling you, I think Plant beats David Benevidez. I'll probably be the only guy that tells you I think I'm picking Plant to beat Benevidez.
Well, a lot of people think David Benevidez is the only, have for a while been thinking he's the only threat to Canelo Alvarez at 168. But now I'm starting to actually favor Canelo Alvarez. And we got another call. Let's take this call real quick. We're talking about David Morrel's impressive performance and also heartbreaking. All right, 503, you were on the shoe shine.
Hey, this is Chicano calling back, man. I wanted to touch base about Morrel with you guys.
Yeah, please do, man, because on one hand, it was an incredibly breathtaking performance to watch him do his work, but at the same time, we find out that his opponent is now fighting for his life.
Yeah, very sad. I send prayers to him. It's in God's hands now, but what I'll say is, as far as Morrel, very, very impressive. This is the second time I've seen him. I think he can do a lot very well. I understand that, this opponent was not top level, but the guy didn't seem like no bum to me. It seemed like some good action. I saw him fight very well on the inside. Like, he's a good natural inside fighter, good at mid-range, good at long range. Although he's going to be facing some guys that are about his size. Like, he's 6'1". He looked much bigger, but the guys they're not always going to look like that. He won't always be necessarily the big man, but I think he's very skilled. I think he beats Benevidez. I think that this could be the guy that we're looking at that will take over the division in like 2 years. I don't, Canelo, age matters. He's not going to be dominant forever. I think this could be the next guy.
There's a lot of last year and a little bit into this year, everybody was praising the Puerto Rican fighter from Top Rank. And already I forgot about his name, man. Already. Drew, can you help me out with that Puerto Rican
Berlanga.
Edgar Berlanga, the knockout machine who was 16-0. And, David Morrel Jr. has half his fights. But it's so easy to see from the Cuban School of Boxing that David Morrel is levels above a fighter prospect like Edgar Berlanga. Do you guys disagree?
I totally agree. I always said Berlanga was a bum.
I always thought I thought he was a fucking hype job because when he moved up,
we've been calling it.
When he moved up from D-weighted fighters, from the taxi cab drivers to fucking actual competition, he came and fucking hurt them.
Yeah, shout out to Bruce Gas Boxing, Jazz, and more, man, who has a great channel on YouTube. Nice to see you in here, Bruce. Make sure you guys go and subscribe to his channel.
But you know what?
Go ahead, Drew.
Like today, people are saying, "Oh, he doesn't have enough pro fights." But tell you the truth, when you have like a lot of amateur fights, like how many more I had? Like 300 fights.
The Cuban amateur like that may easily have had 200, 300. You're right, before defecting.
Like you're learning still. You're learning as an amateur. But when you go up to be a pro fighter, you're most likely you're gonna get fast tracked, and like the stuff he learned all his stuff, all his craft as an amateur and blend into the guys that he fought. He fought a couple of like low weight fighters, and then he moved up the rankings to fight better fighters in order to get up the rankings and be able to get a title and everything. To tell you the truth, this isn't back in the day anymore. This is like now. Like, you had fighters that are below 15 wins that are champions for like probably over 10 years now. Like Sudamov, the guy that was a light heavyweight champion, he was Trovino when he won his title. And like Arthur Batonov, he won his title at 10-0.
Well, what about Lomachenko? I want to thank Chicano Prophet for calling in again. He just dropped the call, but listen, make sure you guys all subscribe to Al Chile Boxing Podcast.
Lomachenko
on YouTube.
3 division champion with like
less than 10 fights.
Like 7 or 10 fights. He was a 3 division champion.
Yeah. Okay, guys, going back to this poor guy, Idos, who really gave it his all. And I want to ask the chat where you guys are still engaged with me, but this is the statement here. Kazakh boxer Idos Yerbosnelli is in critical condition in a medical center in Minneapolis after the spectacular knockout suffered last Saturday night. His fight with Cuban David Morrel, who defended his regular girdle from the middleweight of the WBA, despite the secrecy with which the case has been handled by the team of the Kazakh boxer. BoxeoPlus.com learned that Yerbosnelli was subjected to an induced coma to be able to treat his dangerous brain injury, a subdural hematoma that keeps him in critical condition. So I do ask you guys to keep him in your prayers. Hopefully he will make a speedy recovery, even if he doesn't fight ever again. I have to ask the chat, and I have to ask you, Drew, but Tony Weeks is a referee that has been in countless of championship fights. Even casual boxing fans will recognize Tony Weeks' face because maybe they've seen him be the referee of a major pay-per-view heavyweight attraction. Did Tony Weeks fail the boxer Yerbosnelli this weekend and not stopping the fight earlier?
You gotta blame. You can't just blame the referee for it. You gotta blame the trainer.
Okay.
At the end of the day, because the trainer
has to protect the fighter.
Is the one. He goes into the corner and checks on him, and like he's the one that actually is with him the whole time in the corner and everything, and has to see and like has to look at the situation and everything. Was this fight competitive enough for him to have a chance to win a fight? And like, oh, should I pull him out so he doesn't take no serious damage? But like, I understand a guy wants to go out his shield and everything, but I really, if I was, I would first of all put most of it on the trainer, and then I will put a little bit of it on Weeks this past weekend, because I think the trainer should have stopped the fight.
It's the job of the trainer to protect his client, essentially your client, to protect your fighter. But Drew, I'm going to have to agree here with Nando, and I know some people like Little Penny is agreeing with you that the trainer plays a primary role. But where was the doctors? They knew he was fighting with a broken nose, and I really didn't see the doctors communicating with the referee and the training team enough. This fight arguably could have been stopped rounds earlier, including Ronnie Shields said that the beatdown was so bad that he agreed that it should have been stopped rounds earlier, not in the 12th and final round that resulted to this. And it reminds me of a case of this Russian fighter, Drew, that fought in New York City years back. I don't remember his name. It was a heavyweight fight.
Busana Mafia. I think that's his name. Before Carlos Perez, Irish, a Cuban, Irish defector.
That's right. A Cuban fighter. You're right. Absolutely right. And everybody involved failed that fighter, and he went on to be subjected to a life in a wheelchair as a result, with permanent brain damage from a very similar situation this Kazakh fighter finds himself in. But New York made serious improvements, Drew, and they still are one of the best fight cities in the U.S. now. They did make changes, the way they use the doctors and the referees and whatnot, but it took that incident and sadly, Drew, some people on Twitter are pretty keen to the business of boxing and said that there's probably not even enough money to cover his medical expenses because the Russian fighter, his family had to fight so hard in that case in New York City to get his medical bills paid. It's a lifelong. The guy is going to be with brain injury for the rest of his life. He did survive. He'll never fight again. And with that comes extraordinary cost that we hope. This is why, a lot of people who love boxing advocate that they should have a fighters union the same way the NFL has a players union that protects them with pensions and health insurance, and baseball has such a fantastic baseball players union. And yet MMA fighters and boxers don't have any of those benefits. They operate as independent contractors. It's the only thing that I agree with Jake Paul on, is that he seems serious about helping people in less fortunate circumstances that fight for a living. He seems to be genuine about wanting to have some type of union to help people out, man, because they're really going to need that, man.
That fight should have been stopped in the 9th round.
It could have easily. You're right. Ninth round. Let me know, guys, what you think. I appreciate everyone. Some people say the trainer. Some people say a lot of people. Chicano says the sport has the ability to be brutal, not only in the ring, but outside the ring for sure.
Like, I was watching that fight, and I'm like this. Why is his trainer not stopping this fight? He's taking a fucking beating already. I don't see him. I don't see him having a chance to win this fight unless he has a miracle knockout and everything. This is the time that I would have put him and everything. I was like, I don't know why his trainer's not pulling him and everything, because this dude's taking too many shots. It's just like, people will, like, you gotta blame, but tell you the truth, most of the blame goes on the trainer, because the trainer is close with the guy, is close with the fighter, supposedly. And I know other trainers, if that was another trainer, if that was Buddy McGirt would have stopped that fight.
I think you're right.
I'll tell you that right now.
I think you're right.
Buddy McGirt would have stopped that fight.
I think you're absolutely right.
Like, tell you the truth, like, he prematurely stopped Paulie Malignaggi versus Ricky Hatton and everything, but in my opinion, but I think he cares about his fighters that he trains, and I think he would have stopped that fight. He would say, I can't let you go back out there. I can't let you go out there.
Guys, comments are super important to YouTube channels, guys, as we move forward trying to advance the shoe shine. So if you want to leave me a comment after the show, let me know how many fights does David Morrel Jr. need before Canelo Alvarez takes him serious, or will the WBA eventually just mandate it? Now, I haven't seen Canelo Alvarez fight anybody with less than 10 fights. It'd be a case of 100% risk and no reward to fight David Morrel Jr. so early. But he's clearly going to be a spectacular talent in the super middleweight division. And you know what? To come to a conclusion to my thoughts on this weekend, Drew, I just got to say this, man. There is no way that David Morrel Jr., he's only 24, is not going to be a light heavyweight someday. And if Dimitri Bivol is still there, just like last weekend when we saw that guy Jermaine Ortiz and Del Camarón, on different channels, I'm like, I got to see Jermaine Ortiz fight Zepeda, El Camarón someday. I need to see those guys fight. And right now, I'm going to tell you guys this, man. A fight that I'm already salivating about is the prospect of someday seeing David Morrel Jr., who's only 24 now, move up to light heavyweight and see what a Cuban international amateur boxing star does against the Russian school of boxing. That's a fight that makes me want to salivate. Does that sound weird? That sounded weird. That sounded corny. What do you think about that fight, Drew?
I doubt it happens. Like, I'll be like, let's look at it like this. He's on the wrong stable. Only fighting once a year, and like that can't fly.
Who's only fighting once a year?
David Morrel.
Well, he shouldn't be. I don't know when if this was his only fight of 2022, it just rings true that a lot of these guys in the sport of boxing have way too much inactivity. It's freaking bullshit. Any guy who's a champion should be fighting 3 times a year. Any prospect should be fighting 3 or 4 times a year. As prospects, I'm going to say, have to be fighting even more so than the contender status. Maybe contenders fight 3 times a year. But when you're building your record up and you're a young prospect, you got to fight like 4 times a year. You know what I'm saying? Like Xander Zayas, at least 4 times a year.
I'll tell you this right now. It's like every other sports. The old school puts the new school to shame.
Mm-hmm.
It does, because like even if you're even on top of the mountain, you still fight 4 times a year, sometimes 5 times a year, and everything. Because that money. That money, that legacy, and everything, like people, like Morrel can make so much fucking money if he just goddamn fight more.
We had a great comment from Bruce Gass, Boxing Jazz and more. Says, ask Mark Breland how throwing in the towel helped him. Some trainers are afraid, and with good reason. So, all right, well, that concludes wrapping up the activities in last weekend's the sport of boxing, Drew. But this weekend, man, there's a little bit of fighting action. Montana Love, a junior welterweight prospect that is, I mean, he's really exciting. He kind of hopped on the Jake Paul Showtime bandwagon. Fighting under Jake Paul got him a lot of attention, a lot of eyes from casual sports fans. He looks like he could be a contender at 140 pounds, much like Frank Martin over at PBC, who will be fighting that's a great fight coming up. Frank Martin and that other fighter coming up. I forget his name. But listen, Montana Love looks to be making a statement this weekend against Stevie Spark on DAZN, fighting at home in Cleveland, Ohio. You can catch that on DAZN. And then, of course, coming from Las Vegas, as we talked about on ESPN, Janibek Alemkhanuly, who, in my opinion, had the easiest route to becoming a middleweight champion. It will be fighting someone I've never heard of, Denzel Bentley. And Drew, you were telling me Sinisa Estrada, who left Oscar De La Hoya on some seriously bad terms. Okay, Sinisa Estrada makes her debut this Saturday on Top Rank. That seems to be very exciting. I think that was a great pick-me-up from Bob Arum to snatch her up from Oscar quickly. There's probably more to the story on why she left Oscar De La Hoya. She's a very exciting female fighter. She's one of my favorite, and I know my wife really appreciates watching her. And that'll be from the Palms Pearls Concert Theater. Used to be a fantastic venue for rock concerts and whatnot. Palms Casinos welcomes back boxing. You'll be able to catch that. And I think a fighter that Sonteo Media is really high on, Murataya. Murataya is a prospect contender that has been doing spectacular, and I know Sonteo Media's been watching him in the Robert Garcia gym. I believe he is on the undercard, and also, let's not forget, if you were a fan of the great Fernando Vargas, his son, his baby son, is the only fighter from the 3 sons to be signed by Top Rank, and Bob Arum thinks his baby boy Emiliano Vargas will be a world champion someday. He will be making his premiere on Top Rank this Saturday. Very exciting. Drew, Emiliano, I'm going to be real with you. Yeah, I'm going to put this on tape, man. I sat with Emiliano years back in his family. We were sitting all alongside each other when Canelo Alvarez fought Cesar Chavez Jr., one of the worst fights I've ever paid for in my life. The worst fight I've ever paid for in my life. And his family was amazing. I sat with Fernando Vargas' wife and his father-in-law, who on the reality TV show, it was called Los Vargas, because Fernando Vargas had his own reality show, featured his family and his sons. It was a pleasure sitting with them. And then I ran into Emiliano, who I just was talking about at the Bud Crawford fight with, what was that, Sean Porter? I ran into him. And word was he had already been given a heavy advance. I ran into him in the hallways to try to talk to him, and he blew me off like, get the fuck out of here. What a difference the 12-year-old version of Emiliano Vargas and the 18-year-old just signed who knows what $1 million contract with Top Rank is. So, but if Emiliano ever wants to come on this show, I'd be more than happy to talk with him. So, moving on from that, Drew, that's what's going on this weekend in the sport of boxing. So that gives me the opportunity to wrap up the show. I want to thank everybody who came and hang out with us. Nando Lama says, I saw Janovic fight in Oakland. I was not impressed at the time. And Nando, if I'm correct, I saw him fight on the recently with Shakur Stevenson, or maybe it was at the fight with Bud Crawford and Sean Porter, but I wasn't impressed. And I can't believe that Jaime Munguia didn't take that fight. I straight up can't believe. Sin City says, big time. The Shusha got big time by 18-year-old Emiliano Vargas. Straight up, I did. I got big time. Too small time. Drew, your thoughts on everything that happened in the sport of boxing this weekend, and maybe the Phillies,
well,
man.
You cut out a little bit, Dave. You cut out a little bit. So
I did.
I'm gonna look at it like this. Yeah, you did. But look at it like this. You keep this on record and everything. Montana Love is the dark horse at 140.
He does look to be
champion.
a spectacular talent, and I'm looking forward to this Zepeda fight with Regis Prograis, and we're gonna finally all these belts that were abandoned recently by Josh Taylor. I'm excited to see where the chips will fall, or as they say, the cards will fall, or whatever expression it is, because all these belts are up for grabs, man. And I'm excited to see who's going to claim them, who's going to take them, Will it be Ryan Garcia? I doubt it.
I'll be honest with you. I won't be surprised if Montana Love snatches one of these belts up.
Could be, man. You never know which one of these contenders. You never know. It's straight up, like you said. He's a great talent. I'm looking forward to see how he does. Again, it's kind of against a fighter we've never heard of. But Drew, you're absolutely right. 140-pound division is up for grabs. Before we know it, we'll see Devin Haney. We'll see Ryan Garcia permanently there. That's a division that's going to be stacked with talent, and I look forward to see what happens in the 140-pound division next year, for sure. We'll probably just want to remind you guys. It turns out supposedly Floyd Mayweather versus Deji. Deji is that guy, a UK YouTuber who fought Logan Paul and what set off this course of events of YouTube fighters. Deji beat Logan Paul, and now he finds himself in an exhibition on Fight TV in Dubai, Drew. Nonetheless, in Dubai, Floyd Mayweather was there last week promoting that.
I thought KSI beat Logan Paul.
Wait a minute. Yeah, you're right. I got it all wrong, man. You got it all. I got it all wrong. Who the fuck is Deji?
Dave, yeah, that's what I'm saying. Who the fuck is Deji?
I thought then who is he? It's KSI.
Somebody tell me who the fuck is Deji.
You know what? Shit, I thought Deji was KSI, and now I was like, well, all right, well, that makes sense. Now this fight don't make any freaking sense to me. Let me know who the fuck Deji is. It's probably a guy with a million subs on YouTube nonetheless, man. But Floyd Mayweather, another exhibition fight, and the big news this week, Drew, is that Floyd Mayweather will be fighting on DAZN next year. He's already there's already some press release statements about that Floyd is in the works to fight with DAZN next year, and possibly another exhibition. That's all there is, right? As exhibitions.
Oh man, what a joke!
The guy needs money. The guy needs to keep up. He needs to keep that income up. Thumbs up, man. He likes to make money. Hey, I like to make money too, and that's why I'm going to wrap up the show right now, and I'm going to go check my Powerball ticket because I might be the next billionaire. And make sure you catch us next Monday night on the Shoe Shine at 7:40 p.m., Drew, because I might be the next billionaire. You know what I'm saying?
You just jinxed yourself, Dave.
Well, it serves me right because I only bought one ticket, man. I'm Dave from the 408. This has been the Shoe Shine. Love you guys. Don't forget to hit the like, subscribe if you did it, and drop us a comment. Me and Drew Eva will see you guys next week. Peace out.